I am going to go ahead and make this video for you all in case my document camera does not work. So what we're going to go ahead and do today is create our initials in block and bubble letters. So right now I have half a sheet of paper. You should have a stack of this in your art folder. Remember, this is the very flimsy paper, okay? And it is, I believe, the smallest piece of paper or the smallest type of paper that's in your art folder. So again, half sheet, super flimsy. There's about 5 to 10 of these within your art folder. If you go to kind of slightly bend it like this and it's stiff, that's watercolor paper, put it back. Okay, so I'm actually going to use the front and the back of this to do my block and bubble letters. I'm also going to use a pencil with an eraser, and a ruler would be ideal. Right now, believe it or not, I don't have one with me, so I'm actually just going to use the side of my markers that came in my art kit, and we're going to go ahead and get started, okay? So right now, I'm going to go ahead and create initials onto my paper here, and what our goal with this is to kind of just practice crafting our block and bubble letters well in preparation for our first project. Okay, now the main thing that we're going to do today is we're going to practice crafting our letters. So using our pencil, using certain tools like a ruler or the side of this container to create letters that are well crafted. Okay, and I'll share with you guys what that means in just a moment. Now, you can feel free to work with your own initials. You can just do a couple of random letters. I would encourage you to use your own initials because for your first project, you will be doing your name. So I would practice with some of the letters of your name, okay? So to get us started here, first things first, I'm going to turn off my email, I hope, because sometimes it goes off in the middle of the thing. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to start by sketching my letters very large to fit this space. Okay, so I'm not going to keep these really small in the middle. I'm going to make them as large as I can. And I'm going to start by very lightly sketching them out. Okay, so I am going to... I think I'm going to do, yeah, I think I'm going to do this. So I'm going to do L. And again, I'm keeping this really super light. I'm actually going to draw it a little bit, I'm going to draw it a little bit darker just so you can see it. Okay, and so right now I'm just sketching these in letter form to fill the page, okay? I'm going to make mine, like I said, a little bit darker just so that they show up on camera, but I want you to keep yours light, okay? And right now, these are broken down into lines. So these are letters that are written out. It's L, C, and E, okay? And lines right now that are light. Okay, and what we're going to start to do is transform these into shapes, okay? So the reason why we want to transform these into shapes, aka either via block letters or bubble letters, is because eventually we want to fill those letter shapes with things like color, pattern, design, drawing. So any kind of imagery or pictures, all right? So we can put that inside of a space that's a shape. We can't put it really inside of a space that's a line, okay? So a shape is a space enclosed by line. So we're going to transform these lines into shapes. And the question becomes, how do we do this? Well, our goal with this is to create an even border all the way around this. Now we're going to start, believe it or not, I think I'm going to start with my bubble letters first. And with my bubble letters, they literally look just like that. They look like a bubble that is created evenly around each letter. They are curved, so they do have straightaways, but the main focus on them is that they are rounded as much as possible. Okay, so what I'm going to start by doing is creating an even space all the way around. Okay, so I'm going to keep this line light, but I'm going to draw it a little bit darker for you guys. And see how as I create this space around the letter, see how it's an equal distance away from my initial line. This is important in creating a bubble letter that looks even and well crafted. Okay, as I approach the end right here, I am going to curve this up and over. Okay, so see again how it's an equal distance here, it's an equal distance here. I'm curving it up and over. And I'm going to try and create an even distance on this side, the same distance that I created here. And if you feel like you're doing something like this and you're like, oh man, look, I accidentally came in right here, guess what you can do? You have an eraser. Okay, if you draw lightly, you can erase stuff that is not working. Okay, so I'm creating an even line here. All right, so see how even distance from my initial letter line, I'm literally creating like a giant bubble suit for this letter. Okay, now I'm about to go to this section of my letter, so I am going to stop it right here because this distance is about the same. I'm going to make it go this way, and I'm going to create a giant curve here for this letter. And then I'm going to create the same distance, look here to here, I'm going to create it right here. So right here looks about right. And then where these two sections meet, I'm also going to curve. Okay. In fact, I'm going to make this even more of a curve because it's a bubble letter. Okay, so see how I have a nice even curve, nice even section all the way around, okay, where the line that I drew around my initial letter is the same distance, okay, all the way around. Really quickly, I'm going to do my C that way. Again, when I come to an end of a letter, I'm going to curve it. When I come to the end, I'm going to curve it. And I'm making my C go behind my L, but I could make it go in front if I wanted to. In fact, why don't we make it go in front just for kicks? Okay. And this is even all the way around up. It's not as even here. So guess what? I can bring this out a little bit. Erase this line. Okay, but it's curved here, curved here, curved here. Bringing this in front. Here we go. And then last but not least, I have my E. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sketch this out. Again, I'm looking for even distance all the way around. When I get to the end, I curve it. Maybe I'll make this E go behind the C like that. Even distance here, curving. Even distance here, curving. Okay, see how this distance and this distance is even? I would curve this, curve this. And anytime you get to an end, you want to curve that ever so slightly. All right, now I want to make this and this match, okay, because I want the distance to be even. Here we go, okay. And I would kind of work these curves a little bit more for these, but this is my bubble letters, okay. So my bubble letters for L, C, and E, all right. Now the last step in this process would be to, once you have this even, you're good with how it looks, you can trace over this one more time with your pencil and erase your initial letter lines, okay. So once you're satisfied with all of your changes that you've made, you are going to erase these lines, okay, because you no longer need them. All right, now from here, what we're going to go ahead and do is we are going to move on to block letters, okay? And block letters are just that. They kind of look like they have been created inside of a block. Some artists will start by creating like a rectangle for each letter first and then almost carving away sections that they don't need for their letter. Today, we're going to keep it just kind of simple. And what we're going to do with our block letters is we're going to write our initials out first. Okay. And then craft the outside of the letter so that it looks more straight and more angular and has more points of intersection, more angles. Okay, so these are my bubble letters. These look great. They look rounded, very curved. On the back, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So same initials. Okay, so I'm going to do L, C, and E. Notice how large they are and how spread apart they are. And I'm actually going to use the side of my marker container, I believe, maybe, to sketch these out. Okay, so I'm going to use this in place of a ruler. So again, to create these, what we're going to go ahead and do is we want equal distance from the line for each of the letters. Okay, I am going to... I don't know if y'all can see that. Let me find something else real quick that I can use. Can I use my oil pastel box? That might work a little bit better. Okay, so I'm going to start by tracing. And again, you can use, for this, you can use a ruler. That would be a better idea than what I have here. But I'm just going to use the side of what I have. With block letters, they're more angular. Okay, so what you want to do is create a straight line, okay, equal distance from the line that you drew. When you come to a corner though, instead of rounding it like you did with the bubble letter, what you want to do is make it come to a point, okay? And what we want to do with these block letters is make them as equally distant from the initial line as possible. I'm having a hard time with it because I don't have a ruler and I'm working in front of this really weird thing. Here we go. So I want to keep my distance equal from each side of my line for my letter. Okay, so see how we have really sharp points for each of these? It is very angular, okay? So lots of straightaways, lots of points. That's perfect. Now with this C for block letters, see how this is a curved shape? Most of it will have to be curved, okay? Or what you can do is you can make it more like I can't even think of what it's called now. You can kind of make it like this. Like literally like it's created in a block. Okay. So some artists, when they create their block letters, actually start with a block like this. Okay, so see how this overall shape, okay, is a rectangle, and then they kind of carve it away from there. All right, so they bring this in for the C, bring it here, 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 to trace the overall block for the letter. Okay, so I'm going to try that. Okay, with the E here, I'm going to actually do the same thing. I'm going to draw a rectangle around it. This is just for me. You can very easily just do straightaways with this, but I just want to show kids another way of doing this. Okay, so I have a block around my E to start with. And so if I were to freehand this, this was what this would look like. Tracing this side, bringing it down, bringing it out. So you kind of think of it as carving away from the initial block. Okay, so it's going to hug as many sides of the initial rectangle as possible. And again, it's about equal distance all the way around from the initial lines. So see how I traced that line? I'm going to trace this line. All right, and then what we can do right now is erase any lines that we don't need. Okay, so our initial lines we didn't use, and this will allow us a little bit later on to fill in some of these letters with color and pattern and design and drawings if we so choose. Okay, I'm going to erase this line because I no longer need it. This line, I no longer need it. Okay, so right now, we really can see the difference between some of these block and bubble letters, right? So the block, completely straight, lots of very sharp corners and edges. It almost looks like it's created from a block or a rectangle. These ones, very curved in almost in every possible way. Okay, they literally look like they were made of, like, you know, a bubble or something like that, almost like those balloon letters. All right, so at this point you can choose one or the other to start filling in with pattern. So we're going to talk a little bit about pattern and what that can do.